I never thought I'd be writing this, but life has a way of surprising you when you least expect it. 3 months ago, my life was completely different. I was in what I believed was a happy relationship with someone I'd been dating for 2 years. Now, I'm sitting here trying to make sense of how everything fell apart so quickly. Let me start from the beginning. I met Sarah at a friend's housewarming party. She worked in marketing, and I was in software development. We clicked instantly over our shared love of indie movies and street food. After a few casual dates, things became official, and before I knew it, we were celebrating our first anniversary. Before Sarah, my relationships never lasted more than a few months. Either I'd lose interest, or they'd decide we wanted different things from life. But with Sarah, everything felt different. We had our routines, Friday night takeout, weekend hikes, and stupid competitions about who could make the worst pun. I thought we were building something real. Then things started changing about 3 months ago. Sarah got a new job at a startup, and suddenly, our comfortable routine began falling apart. At first, it was small things: canceled dinner plans, shorter phone calls, fewer messages throughout the day. When I tried talking to her about it, she'd say the new job was demanding and she needed time to adjust. I tried to be understanding. Really, I did. I gave her space, stopped asking for more time together, and tried to be supportive of her career. But something felt off. The Sarah I knew would have at least tried to make time for us, even if it was just a quick coffee before work. The breaking point came during a regular weeknight. She'd come over after work, complaining about her long commute and how exhausted she was. That's when I suggested something I'd been thinking about for months: moving in together. My apartment was closer to her new office, and after 2 years together, it seemed like a natural next step. Her reaction caught me completely off guard. Instead of considering it, or even having a discussion, she immediately shut down the idea. When I tried to understand why, she got defensive and started yelling about how I was pressuring her. Me? Pressuring her? All I wanted was to talk about our future. That night ended with our biggest fight ever. I remember saying something about her not being serious about us, and she stormed out. The next morning, she had blocked me everywhere: phone, social media, email, everything. Just like that, 2 years of my life disappeared into thin air. I spent the next 2 weeks trying everything to contact her. I went to her apartment, only to find out she'd already moved out. Her landlord mentioned she'd ended her lease days before our fight. Her friends wouldn't talk to me, and even her parents threatened to call the police if I showed up at their house again. After 2 weeks of what felt like going crazy, I finally gave up. I threw myself into work, trying to keep my mind occupied. My friends kept checking on me, making sure I was eating and sleeping. I probably wasn't the best company during those days, but they stuck around anyway. Just when I thought I was starting to heal, everything exploded again. A mutual friend sent me screenshots of Sarah's social media. She was back online after a month of silence, posting anniversary pictures with some guy. Not just any anniversary, their 6-month anniversary. 6 months. The math wasn't hard to do. She'd been seeing this guy for 3 months before our breakup. While I was trying to give her space and be understanding about her new job stress, she was building a relationship with someone else. I couldn't just let it go. Using a friend's social media account, I looked up the guy she was with. His profile was public, full of expensive vacations and fancy parties. And there she was in his recent photos, never showing her face until that anniversary post, but I recognized her tattoo in several pictures. Something in me snapped. I messaged him from my own account, telling him everything. I sent proof, our pictures together, our recent conversations, everything that showed she'd been with me while dating him. Then I waited. 2 days later, my phone rang. It was Sarah, unblocked and furious. She screamed about how I'd ruined her life. Turns out, the guy she'd been seeing wasn't just any rich guy. He was her boss's son. Not only was he breaking up with her, but she was also losing her job. She blamed me for everything, saying I was jealous of her success and couldn't stand to see her happy. The truth was, I wasn't jealous. I was hurt, betrayed, and finally seeing clearly for the first time in months. Sarah hadn't just cheated on me. She built an entire alternate life while pretending everything was fine between us. She let me blame myself for being insecure when she was the one living a lie. I wanted to feel bad about what happened with her job, but I couldn't. Everything that was happening to her was a direct result of her own choices. She chose to cheat, she chose to lie, and now she was facing the consequences. After blocking Sarah's number again, I started focusing on getting my life back together. My friends kept telling me I didn't do anything wrong by exposing her lies, but part of me still felt uneasy about the whole situation. Not because I felt bad for her, but because I wasn't sure if I'd done it for the right reasons. A week passed, and then something unexpected happened. I got a message from him, Let's call him James. He wanted to talk on the phone. After thinking about it for a few minutes, I decided to hear him out and send him my number. The conversation changed everything I thought I knew about the situation. James told me he'd had suspicions about Sarah for months. Her behavior had been odd from the start, always making excuses about why they couldn't meet certain days, being secretive with her phone, and never wanting to post pictures together on social media. What really caught my attention was when he told me about Sarah's job situation. It wasn't what she'd made it out to be at all. The company had wanted to fire her for months because she wasn't doing her work properly. Other people in her department were constantly covering for her mistakes. The only reason she kept her job was that James had been protecting her, asking his father to give her more chances. Now that everything was out in the open, James had stopped defending her, and the company was finally letting her go. It wasn't about revenge or her personal life. She just wasn't good at her job. When Sarah threatened to sue for wrongful termination, James asked if I'd be willing to testify about what I knew if needed. I agreed without hesitation. The strangest part of all this was that James and I actually got along really well. We ended up talking for over an hour, laughing about the ridiculous excuses Sarah had given us both over the months. He joked about how she'd tell him she was working late while actually being with me, then tell me she was working late while being with him. It should have been painful to talk about, but somehow it wasn't. Meanwhile, Sarah was telling everyone who would listen that I was toxic and controlling, that she'd only cheated because she felt trapped in our relationship. Nobody bought it. Our friends had known me for years, and they'd seen how I'd treated her. Besides, she'd cut contact with most of them months ago to keep her secret safe. Her parents called me a few days later. It was ironic. These were the same people who'd threatened to call the police on me when I tried to talk to them after Sarah disappeared. Now they wanted to talk about respecting the relationship we'd had and being the bigger person. They even tried saying they'd always thought of me as a son, which was rich considering their previous behavior. I listened to them talk, then calmly explained that there was nothing I could do about Sarah's job situation. It was between her and her employers. They hung up on me, and honestly, I was relieved. I didn't need their guilt trips on top of everything else. Over the next few weeks, James and I kept in touch. At first, it was just to update each other about the situation with Sarah and her threats to sue the company. But soon we found ourselves talking about other things, our jobs, our hobbies, even making plans to hang out. Sarah's friends started sending us angry messages, saying we were pathetic for becoming friends just to talk about her. The funny thing was, we barely talked about her anymore. We had more interesting things to discuss. James turned out to be a huge fan of the same obscure video games I loved, and we had similar tastes in music. It was like finding a friend I'd known my whole life. One Friday, James suggested meeting up for lunch since he was near my office. I agreed, and we ended up having a great time. The whole situation was bizarre. Here I was, having lunch with the guy my ex-girlfriend had cheated on me with, and we were getting along like old friends. We heard through mutual friends that Sarah was furious about our friendship. She kept telling people we were only hanging out to plot against her or talk about her behind her back. The reality was, we'd both moved on. She just couldn't accept that we'd found something positive in the mess she'd created. Life has a weird way of working out sometimes. If you'd told me 3 months ago that I'd end up friends with the guy my girlfriend cheated on me with, I would have said you were crazy. But here we are. Sarah's back living with her parents, unemployed, and probably regretting her choices. Meanwhile, I've gained a good friend out of this whole mess. The company ended up settling with Sarah out of court, but she only got $3,000. It wasn't hard for them to prove she'd been underperforming. They had months of reports showing her poor work, along with documentation of all the times James had intervened to save her job. Sarah wasn't happy with the settlement. She'd probably been hoping for much more money, especially since she was now struggling to find a new job. The apartment she'd been living in, the one James had been paying for, was no longer an option. He'd been nice enough to give her a week to move out, but that was it. What really seemed to bother her wasn't the money or the job, but the fact that James and I had become friends. We'd been meeting regularly for lunch, going to sports events together, and even started a weekly gaming night. Our friendship made her look bad, and she knew it. How could she keep telling people I was toxic when I was getting along so well with the guy she cheated with? Her friends kept sending us messages saying we should be ashamed of ourselves. They thought we were just hanging out to make Sarah feel bad. But the truth was, we barely thought about her anymore. We had our own friendship now, completely separate from what had happened with Sarah. Looking back, I can see how much I've changed since that night Sarah stormed out of my apartment. Back then, I thought my world was ending. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't focus on anything but trying to understand what had gone wrong. I spent weeks blaming myself, wondering if I could have done something differently. Now I know that nothing I did could have changed what happened. Sarah made her choices long before our final fight. She chose to start seeing James while still with me. She chose to lie instead of ending things cleanly. She chose to create drama instead of taking responsibility for her actions. The funny thing is, I'm actually grateful for how everything turned out. Not because Sarah lost her job or ended up moving back with her parents. I don't care about that anymore. I'm grateful because this whole mess helped me see things more clearly. It showed me who my real friends were, taught me to trust my instincts, and even brought an unexpected new friendship into my life. James and I still laugh about how weird our situation is. Most people wouldn't understand how two guys could become friends after something like this. But we both got played by the same person, and instead of letting it make us bitter, we chose to see the humor in it. We've even started joking that Sarah should get a friendship broker commission. The last I heard, Sarah was still living with her parents and looking for work. Her parents stopped trying to contact me after that one phone call. I think they finally realized their daughter was the one who needed to take responsibility for her actions, not me. Some of our mutual friends have told me that Sarah's changed her story again. Now she's saying James and I planned this whole thing together to ruin her life. According to her, we must have known each other beforehand and set her up. It's ridiculous, of course, but I don't even care enough to correct her anymore. The truth is, I'm done letting Sarah's drama affect my life. She can tell whatever story she wants. The people who matter know what really happened. I've moved on, started dating again, and am actually enjoying my life more than I did when I was with her. Sometimes the worst things that happen to us end up leading to the best changes in our lives. If Sarah hadn't cheated, I would have stayed in a relationship with someone who didn't respect me. I would have kept making excuses for her behavior, kept trying to fix things that weren't my responsibility to fix. Instead, I'm free. I've learned what I will and won't accept in relationships. I've discovered that I'm stronger than I thought I was. And most surprisingly, I've gained a great friend who understands exactly what I went through. Life isn't perfect. I still have days when I think about those 2 years and feel angry about the time I wasted. But those days are getting fewer and farther between. I'm starting to see that maybe those years weren't wasted after all. They were just preparing me for something better. James and I have plans to go on a camping trip next month with some other friends. 2 months ago, I couldn't even get out of bed some days. Now I'm planning future adventures and actually looking forward to them. That's what healing looks like, I guess. Not forgetting what happened, but not letting it control your life anymore. In the end, Sarah didn't ruin my life like she thinks she did. She just cleared the way for a better one. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up and share it with friends or family who might enjoy it too. Your support means a lot. And if you have any thoughts, questions, or story ideas, drop them in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. See you in the next story.